Okay, there we are. Hey, everybody. I always like to make sure that I am in the right group before I get started. So welcome. We are in week 2 of our virtual book club on breast health. So today we're going to do it a little different than we did last week. So we're going to reverse it. So I'm going to get started on the recipe, and then we're going to actually talk about the book. And the reason for that is it needs a few minutes to cook. So that's why we're going to do that. So I'm actually going to do everything's going to be done in the Instant Pot. I'm going to talk about that in a little while for those of you that aren't familiar with the Instant Pot. So I want to get started with this cooking. So I'm going to get everything into the pot. You can watch me do that and learn from that, and then I'll go through with you each individual ingredient. This way we don't waste any time while it's cooking. So, all right, let me get this open, and I'm going to hit my saute button. And I'm going to add a little bit of water. Your recipe, again, we're making the Indian spinach curry. So everybody should have received, a copy of the recipe in your email. If you did not receive it, please let me know, because maybe it went to your spam folder. Make sure you check there first. And if not, then we need to make sure that you're on the email list so you get all the recipes each week. So we're making Indian spinach curry. So let me throw all of the ingredients. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to saute the onions and garlic. And that's why I just put a little bit of water in there. Your recipe that you have calls for olive oil. I do try to limit our oil. That is something I go into a lot of detail about in my nutrition course that I do for women. But basically, we just try to limit our oils. Not that we don't eat oil at all, we just do try to limit it. So I try to saute in water, do a water saute when I can. So that's the first thing we're gonna do. We got that added in there, and we got the garlic and the onions going. You do not have to saute. Your recipe that you received is to show you how to make it in a, what do we do here? We put it in a pot, in a stock pot. But if you prefer to use your Instant Pot, like I do for pretty much everything, just follow along with the video and you'll see how you do that. So normally I would let it sit on saute for a few minutes, maybe about 2 or 3 minutes, and I would let the garlic and the onions that I just put in, I would let that kind of saute up. But to save time today, I'm actually not going to do that. So I just kind of threw those in there. I am now putting in the tomatoes. Again, I'm going to go through with you each of the ingredients after I get this all started. These are the garbanzo beans, or also known as chickpeas. There's 2 cans of those. Okay, now I'm going to add in my spices. Now again, just like I mentioned last week, I am not exact with my recipes when I cook for my own family. But of course, if you're not comfortable doing that, then just follow the recipe as it was provided for you. So I'm eyeballing everything, plus I know what my family likes maybe a little more of. Like for instance, the recipe calls for 2 cloves of garlic. 2 cloves of garlic, I never cook with 2 cloves of garlic. Usually we're about 4 to 5 cloves per recipe, but some people may not like the taste of garlic that much. Our family loves garlic, and of course it's so healthy for you. It's one of the top breast superfoods. So I'm gonna put in our salt. Again, the recipe actually calls for a teaspoon of salt. And again, I'll go through all of these individually as soon as I get this started. So the next thing is some black pepper. The recipe calls for 1/4 teaspoon. We don't mind spice, so I'm adding a little bit more of that. The recipe calls for 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper's pretty spicy, so just put in the 1/4 teaspoon, or if you don't mind spice, you can add more. I'm going to put in the curry powder. We love curry powder, so I am just dumping a whole bunch in there. The recipe calls for 1 teaspoon if you're following the recipe exactly. And then, of course, the ingredient we're going to talk most about today is turmeric, and the incredible breast healthy benefits to it. So I'm just loading it in there. And again, if you are not comfortable eyeballing things, that is perfectly fine. Just follow the recipe like I gave it to you. If you guys are hopping on, let me know that you're there. And of course, if you have any questions, post them and I will answer them at the end. Okay, and then this is ginger. All right, I'm gonna give everything in there a stir. That's all I need now. 2 more ingredients that will get added after this cooks. So let me get this started. Just kind of giving everything a good stir. And I'm going to turn off the saute there. I'm gonna put my lid on. Okay. And I'm actually going to hit the manual button. Can you guys see? I don't know if you guys can see from there, the angle, but I'm hitting the manual button. And I'm actually going to cook this, believe it or not, for 4 minutes. That's it. One of the beauties of the Instant Pot. Okay, so let me put this aside, the Instant Pot, while it's cooking. And then now let's discuss some of the ingredients. You can hear some beeping as that's cooking. All right. So the reason that I chose the Indian spinach curry for this week is because it includes 5 of the top breast health superfoods according to Dr. Funk. So again, people think that you have to make all these really big changes to your diet to see benefits, and it's just not true. Like adding in these simple meals, I mean, first of all, it doesn't get any easier than this. I just dumped all of those ingredients into this Instant Pot. I put it on for 4 minutes. I will need probably about 2 to 3 minutes when this is done cooking, when I add the spinach and the coconut milk, which are 2 more ingredients. So all in all, I've got a meal here for under 15 minutes. So it's not hard to do. Now, all of the ingredients that we're going to go through, actually all except the spinach, are shelf stable. So this is a great recipe. Like, I keep a lot of these ingredients in my pantry, so I have this on hand, so I can make this, at the last minute. Again, the only thing that you would have to probably buy is your spinach. You would have to buy that because that's fresh and it's not really shelf stable. But everything else is. So let me go through with you what we just did. So the first thing that we added were the onions and the garlic, first of all. And of course, we learned last week that the onions and the garlic are breast superfoods. That's on the list. In fact, we're going to go through each one. Our onions were number 7 on her list. Then I added in garbanzo beans, so 2 cans of garbanzo beans, also known as chickpeas. So sometimes some companies will be listed as garbanzo beans and some will say chickpeas. Everything that you see, remember, we're going to talk next week a little bit about why it's really important to buy organic or buy as much organic as you can. So everything I'm cooking with today is organic. And I gave you the tip last week. If you cannot afford, if it's out of your budget to buy everything organic, then just do the best you can and buy the things that you eat a lot of. So I think last week I used the example for coffee. So if you drink coffee every single day, then you want to make sure the coffee that you're drinking is organic, okay? So here are the beans. These were rinsed and drained. So even though they're still in the can before, I needed to save time today because I am waiting for this to cook up. So I did a lot of the prep work ahead of time. So the beans were rinsed and drained, okay? So that was the first thing. The next thing that I added was a can of diced tomatoes, organic diced tomatoes. Those are also on the breast health superfoods. Part of the top 10 tomatoes are. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Just a tip for you. If you've gone through any of my courses, I talk about how to buy things in a package. So if you're buying anything in a box, a can, a bag, any kind of packaged food, we follow a 5 ingredient or less rule. And basically what that means is that I don't worry about really what's so much on the front of the package. I turn it around and I read the ingredient label. And the ingredient label should have 5 or less ingredients, and I should know exactly what those ingredients are. If it's a word and it's an ingredient I can barely pronounce or I don't know what it is, then most likely my body's not going to know how to process that, and I'm going to put that item right back on the shelf. So you want to make sure that you're buying, you're reading ingredient labels. It's one of the things I teach in my nutrition course. Super, super important, ladies. Make sure you're reading ingredient labels. Okay, so let's go through some of the spices that we used. Curry powder. So this is very anti-inflammatory. Curry technically is a blend of a few different spices, including turmeric, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Super incredible spice, turmeric. So it had some curry powder. One of the spices it does not have, which I ran out. I didn't realize I didn't have it, was cumin. So that's one spice you're not going to see here that I'm demoing, but it is on your recipe. So just so you know. Cayenne pepper, another great spice. Notice all my spices are organic as well. Black pepper, we're going to talk about the importance of black pepper in a minute, especially when we eat turmeric. Black pepper and turmeric together, like peanut butter and jelly. Okay. Salt. So here's a little trick for you. Again, this is something I teach in my nutrition course. You guys are getting all these great tips. Get rid of any table salt. If you have salt like Morton salt or iodized salt, please ditch that salt. It is not healthy. I know that's really popular in the last few years. People have a lot of the, Himalayan salts. That's great. But if you really want to up your game and you want to make a healthier choice, then I always recommend going with Redmond Real Salt. This salt is loaded with minerals that is usually stripped out of other salts just from the processing of those salts. So this is not heated, this is not bleached. In fact, you can't really see in the video, but it's very gray in color, and there's like some pink undertones as well. That's because they don't bleach it. There's no anti-caking agents. So these are the things you have to be really careful about when you're using salt. Now, I don't go overboard with salt because that's kind of important not to do that. But a little bit of salt in our diet, especially if you can get pure salt like this real, the Redmond Real Salt, is actually very healthy for you. It's loaded with minerals that our bodies need. So there's a little tip for you. And then the Mac Daddy of the spices is turmeric. So that's like the star of this dish today is the turmeric. And we're going to talk about why in a minute. But I just want you to look really carefully. Maybe you guys can see that beautiful golden color, okay? That color, that's from the phytonutrients that we talked about last week. The phytochemicals or the phytonutrients that are naturally found in plants. Those are the things that are anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer. What give it the beautiful color like that is what actually protects us from all of the diseases that we talk about. And in this book club, we're really focusing on breast health and breast cancer. All right. And then spinach, which we're going to add in a minute. Again, I always add my spinach at the end after the cook time because I just want this to wilt. I don't want to be cooking the spinach for 4 to 5 minutes because then it kind of gets all mushy, too mushy. So so this is added at the end, and I don't even cook it. I just kind of close the lid. You guys will see when this is over. I kind of fill it up, kind of dump a whole bunch of spinach in there, close the lid, and just let the steam kind of just wilt the spinach. That's the best thing to do. And this is a dark leafy green, which is #1 on the breast cancer list. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Remember, #1 on Dr. Funk's breast health list is cruciferous vegetables and dark leafy greens. And then at the end, we're also going to add coconut milk. So whenever I use coconut milk, I use the full fat version. Fat, when it comes from a whole plant source, is actually very healthy for us. So things like avocado, that's got some healthy fats. Nuts, seeds, coconut, all healthy fats. Be very careful when you're buying your coconut milk. Again, here's another tip, and we go through this in my course, teaching you how to read ingredient labels. We need to be really careful because a lot of coconut milks on the market have a lot of ingredients in it that will, they're like emulsifiers. There's MSG in a lot, and that's actually a big thing we talk about in my course is MSG and all of the hidden names for MSG. MSG is awful for our hormones, ladies. It's absolutely something we need to be avoiding when we are, as we're getting older. Nobody should be eating MSG, but especially if we're dealing with any type of hormonal issues or weight gain. So again, go into a lot of detail about that. So you want to make sure that your coconut milk doesn't have anything listed like guar gum or anything like that. So this one is Native Forest brand, and it's their Simple brand. Let me just show you guys right there. You can really get this at any grocery store, and you can even purchase it online through Amazon. But this is, if you remember what I just told you guys about reading the ingredient labels is so important. So this is organic coconut milk and filtered water. That's it. Those are the 2 ingredients. I know what they are. So they fit my 5 ingredient or less rule. So my body knows what those ingredients are. So my body will know what to do and how to process it. Okay. But again, I don't add this in until the end. I don't like cooking coconut milk for too long. I don't like the flavor. It kind of changes the flavor of it. So this is something that I will add at the end. If you guys are just hopping on now, just let me know you're here. I'd love to know that you guys are here. And if you have any questions, I'm just checking my phone down below here. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them below. If you catch this on the replay, just post your questions below and I'm happy to answer them for you later on today or another day if you watch it. Okay, let me just check here. Awesome. All right, so let's go through, now that we have all the ingredients in here, it's cooking, it's gonna cook for a few more minutes. Let's go through the book. I hope you guys got to do some reading this week. Again, these cooking classes really correspond with the book. This is the one that we're reading, Breasts, the Owner's Manual by Dr. Christy Funk. I mentioned this last week, I talk about it all the time. I think every woman should own this book. Whether you do this book club or you don't, make sure that every woman in your life has this book. It is just full of really important information that we as women should have. We should be educated on how to take care of our breasts. I mean, it just makes sense, right? You would think that this is just such an obvious thing, but it's really not. And I'm curious to know, how much of this information have you gone through and have you read and you're like, wow, why did nobody ever tell me that before? I know I did. Again, this is about my 4th time reading this book, and I always pick up different, nuggets of information. And I'm always surprised because I'm thinking to myself, maybe 52 years old, how come nobody ever told me about this information and how that I can reduce my risk of developing breast cancer? And, as a side note, everything that she preaches in this book also reduces your risk of developing other cancers. It also reduces our risk of developing our #1 killer, which is heart disease, ladies. I'm going to be doing in February another book club, another virtual book club with another book and more cooking classes on heart disease, because it's our #1 killer. And everything she's teaching in this book is going to reduce our risk of developing heart disease as well. So you can't go wrong with all of the information that Dr. Funk shares in this book. Okay, so let's take a look here. I got my notes. This is smelling amazing. I wish Facebook had a smell option where you could smell what I'm cooking. It smells absolutely amazing. All right, so let's talk about the different ingredients in the Indian spinach curry and what Dr. Funk says about each of these. Now remember, the reason why all of these plant foods are so medicinal and why they're so good for us is because of the phytonutrients. Thousands and thousands of phytonutrients, plant nutrients. Sometimes you'll hear them referred to as phytochemicals. They are the naturally occurring chemicals or nutrients within the plant. And these are the things that scientists in the last several years have been studying, that they're finding, wow, these things have so many medicinal purposes. They really, really help us in the prevention of disease. So she did a lot of research, and she went through and she, of course, created her top 10 list of breast healthy superfoods. So let's go through. #1 is the spinach we just talked about, right? We're going to add that at the end. So that's #1 on the list. So on her list, spinach, along with other dark leafy greens like kale, arugula, Swiss chard, and collards, provide indole-3 carbanols, which exit excess estrogen out the urinary door. So basically you pee them out, right? So remember last week, dark leafy greens is kind of #1 spot shared with cruciferous vegetables. So if you remember last week we cooked, or actually didn't cook, it was raw, but we made the broccoli apple salad because the broccoli is a cruciferous vegetable. So cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower share that #1 spot with dark leafy greens. Ladies, if you do nothing else to your diet, just start eating more greens, more dark leafy greens. It is actually one of the main things we work on in my course and in my challenges that I do, because we do a happy hormone smoothie, and it's like the spinach or the dark leafy greens are like the primary ingredient in it. It takes up a lot of that smoothie. Why? Because dark leafy greens are absolutely amazing for our hormone health, okay? So that's why it's #1 on her list. #2, she talked about dietary fiber. Last week we talked about this. Fiber is only found in plant foods. You can't get fiber from animal products. You can't get fiber anywhere else. You can only get fiber from plant foods. And if you remember correctly, Dr. Funk mentions that about 97% of Americans are severely deficient in fiber. And fiber is critical to our overall health. We need to be getting more fiber in our diet. So I always find it funny, because when people hear I eat a whole food, plant-based diet, the first question I get is, how do you get your protein? And I always laugh, because if you're not eating a whole food plant-based diet, my concern, because of all of my research, is how do you get enough fiber? Oops. Okay, so it's almost done. That's how fast this is, guys. Okay, so sorry for the beeping. So dietary fiber only comes from plant foods. So it's #2. So the reason why is because estrogen feeds and fuels 80% of all breast cancers. Unfortunately, most women don't know this fact, or that estrogen can be suppressed with a targeted diet. Fiber crushes cancer's dreams when it binds estrogen and toxins in your gastrointestinal tract. So you basically poop them out. You improve your insulin sensitivity, and you release a litany of antioxidant vitamins and anti-cancer compounds. High fiber intake even quells the more aggressive estrogen-negative tumors. So again, anybody who's ever taken my courses before or my challenges, I preach this all the time. Ladies, make sure you're getting enough fiber in your diet. So smoothies, salads, whole food plant-based meals like this. You want to make sure you're getting enough fiber. Lots of good reasons for it. And who's hopping on? Yay! Okay, Liana's there. Susan is here. Hey guys, thanks for hopping on. Okay, the next ingredient that we added to the curry, we had a can of our diced tomatoes, because tomatoes is actually on her breast health superfood list. They're number 5 on her list. They contain lycopene, which a lot of people actually have heard of. So lycopene is actually one of those phytonutrients that we talked about, okay? And it's what gives them their beautiful red color. And believe it or not, it's actually more concentrated on their skins. Now remember, we talked about this last week too with apples. If you remember correctly, apples is on her top superfood list. And the chemicals that make them so healthy are actually more concentrated on the skins. So in all of my classes that I teach, I really try to teach you to buy organic so that we can keep the skins on. I very rarely peel my fruits and vegetables because a lot of the nutrients are in the skin. That's not to say that the nutrients aren't in the rest of the plant, but a lot of times they're very concentrated in the skin. So that is a huge reason why I recommend organic. And leave your skins on. It's going to make your life so much easier. Think about the things you don't have to peel. I don't peel carrots. I don't peel sweet potatoes. I don't peel apples. I just leave those skins on. So tomatoes, again, the lycopene, which gives them their beautiful red color, is more concentrated in the skins. Lycopene is a powerful antioxidant, and it exhibits anti-inflammatory and anti-angiogenesis abilities. Unlike most phytonutrients, which are best consumed in their raw state, heating tomatoes for 15 minutes increases the lycopene bioavailability by 300%. So bioavailability just means what your body can actually take in and use and not waste. So go ahead and enjoy those cooked tomatoes. That's not to say that raw tomatoes aren't good for you. They definitely have lycopene in them. But when you cook tomatoes, this incredible process happens in that the lycopene in them becomes more bioavailable to your body. So it's actually better to be cooking your tomatoes. There are several different, there are a few, I wouldn't say several, but there are a few vegetables and fruits that are actually better for you cooked, and some are better for you raw. Most of them are better for you raw because the content of their phytonutrients is a lot higher when they're raw. But yes, tomatoes is different. So we're cooking tomatoes. Again, great ingredient to have in this recipe. And then number 7 were the onions. I don't have the onions in front of me because they already went into the Instant Pot. But remember, the onions we used last week, and those are number 7 on her breast healthy list, on her superfoods list. So this is very interesting. A French study showed an astounding 75% drop in breast cancer with 11 to 12 weekly servings of vegetables containing allium, like garlic and onion. So allium is the actual phytonutrient or phytochemical that you're going to find in your different garlics and your different types of onions, and that's the chemical that is healthy for us, right? And so that's really very impressive, that 75% drop in breast cancer with about 11 to 12 weekly servings of vegetables that contain allium. Now in our house, as I mentioned earlier, garlic is a staple in our house. It's probably in every dish I make, pretty much almost, I'd say 99.9% of the dishes that I make for dinners include garlic. And when my recipe calls for 2 cloves, you can be guaranteed in my kitchen I'm adding 4 to 5 cloves because we just love garlic, okay? So if you like garlic or onions, feel free to add them as much as you'd like to the recipe. And then the last ingredient, which is really the superstar that in this class that we're learning about today, is turmeric, okay? And there's a lot of good reasons for that. So turmeric is actually number 8, as are some other spices that we're going to learn about later. It is on number 8 on the breast superfoods list. And it's really, if you look up above, it is actually the reason why we talked about the curcumin is actually the chemical inside of turmeric that gives it this beautiful, beautiful color, okay? So curcumin is the chemical or the phytonutrient that we talked about that gives it this beautiful color. But it is also anti-cancer, it's anti-inflammatory, lots of studies. I would say probably turmeric is the spice that's been studied the most out of all spices, especially curcumin. Now there's lots of other amazing chemicals in it, but I'd say the most studied would be curcumin. Another reason why, because some people do ask, it's very interesting, some people will say, well, can't I just get curcumin pills, at my local health food store. I don't normally recommend that, and the reason why is because I'm not a big fan of extracting one nutrient or one chemical out of the entire plant. So turmeric is a root. I wish I had a fresh one here just to show you what it looks like, but I don't. I can actually post a picture down below so that you guys can see what it looks like. And this is just ground up. But when you go to the store and some people are told, oh, you should take curcumin pills. They're good for anti-inflammation. I'm not really a big fan of that, because the reason why is we are provided this plant, in this case the turmeric, there are thousands of different phytonutrients inside that plant, and they work synergistically. And scientists don't even know what most of those things do. And so I think it's always better to just get it in its most natural state instead of going and buying supplements or tablets that just extract one nutrient, in this case, curcumin. So it's best to just use this, sprinkle it. I think somebody in the Facebook group said they sprinkle a little bit in their coffee each day. I think that's a great idea. Use it in any of your dishes when you're cooking. You sprinkle it into a smoothie. Lots of different things you can do with turmeric, but make sure you're getting more turmeric in your diet. And again, how easy is this? You just buy it and it sits on your spice shelf, so you don't even have to worry about it going bad. Your spices, if you buy good quality spices, will last you a very, very long time. All right, so make sure you're getting more turmeric in your diet. Let's see, who's hopping on here? Guys, feel free. What? Let me just get in here. Let me know if you guys are hopping on. And hold on one second. Let me get myself back up here. Okay, so that was turmeric. Now, the other thing too, I'm going to talk about this in a second. Let's talk about the black pepper. So let me go into the book and reference. I hope you guys, I'm not sure how far along everybody is, but hopefully you're moving along, and hopefully your book is starting to look like mine with all of the Post-its and all of the highlighting. So let's see here. Okay, so let's talk about really fast. I'm going to actually read to you a little bit about what she says about turmeric here in the book. And again, because I'm quoting her, I want to read directly from the book so that I don't misquote her. Could curcumin, the most active ingredient in the pungent yellow herb turmeric, be the reason that breast cancer rates in India are 5 times less than in westernized countries? Curcumin decreases estrogen, induces cancer cell apoptosis, that's the death of cancer cells, suppresses inflammation, and inhibits free radicals. In fact, human blood samples were exposed to free radicals in a lab one week. And when this exposure was repeated on fresh samples from the same people the following week, they sustained half the oxidative DNA damage. What changed in 1 week? The study subjects merely consumed 1 daily pinch of turmeric. Now, this is very interesting. Piperine, which is a phytonutrient found in black pepper, which, again, is part of this recipe as well, increases the bioavailability of curcumin from barely detectable to 2,000% higher. In its own right, piperine has been found to suppress breast tumor growth and metastatic spread in animal models. So anytime you can add pepper to your recipe that also has turmeric in it, even better. So that's why this recipe has both black pepper and turmeric. So that's really important. All right. Oh, this is smelling so amazing. All right, let me take a break from this 1 second and see if... Hopefully that'll just take a second. And then I can get in the rest of the ingredients then. So guys, post your questions if you have any questions below. And as soon as that's done, I will get the spinach in there. One of the benefits, or one of the many benefits of these weekly cooking classes is I'm getting dinner done for my family. So dinner's gonna be all done for everybody for tonight. All right, if you guys don't have an Instant Pot, I cannot recommend it enough. I absolutely love my Instant Pot. All right, so the valve went down, which means I can open this. Oh, it really does smell amazing. So this is what I do with the spinach. So I pretty much, now the recipe calls for probably 4 cups. We do a lot more than 4 cups. You do however much you would like. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm just going to, you can never have enough dark leafy greens. So again, there's, number 1 on the breast superfood list. Okay, so I just kind of really just pack it in there. And then I take my, okay, that's not good. All right, let's just go like this. So I'm gonna actually use half the coconut milk because most of it just spilled on the floor. All right, let's see. So I'll add some more in later, but for now, as coconut milk is pouring all down my counter. All right, let's get the lid on. All right, and that's really all. I mean, you don't even have to, let me get a napkin. I'm not even gonna close it all the way. I'm just gonna leave it like this. And the steam that is just kind of building up in there is just going to wilt the spinach. And that's all we wanna do. We don't want the spinach to overcook. That's why I added at the last minute. Okay, so, all right, let's go back. Speaking of the Instant Pot, ladies, if you do not have an Instant Pot, I highly recommend it. It was something that I didn't buy for the longest time because I'm not really big into buying more gadgets. I don't like a whole lot of stuff on my kitchen counters. But my slow cooker broke a while back, and so I had to replace it. And somebody said, you should get the Instant Pot because it also has a slow cooker function. And so I was like, well, all right, I'll buy it. Worst case scenario, I don't like the Instant Pot part of it, and I can just use it as a slow cooker. I bought it. I have never once used a slow cooker. In fact, I don't use a slow cooker anymore. I only use the Instant Pot. It is amazing. So for those of you inside of our membership area, don't forget, inside the Learning Library, there's a 2-part class that I teach you all about the Instant Pot. I take you from start to finish, how to use your Instant Pot. There's actually some recipes in there too that I've added that are great Instant Pot recipes. But for anybody, if you don't have an Instant Pot, go get yourself an Instant Pot. It's amazing, awesome. Okay, so there's that. And this smells so good, guys. All right, so I had 2 questions. So let me go through some questions that I had that came up. So somebody reached out to me and asked me about soy. They have read in the section of the book, Dr. Funk recommends soy. So there was a big myth for many years that soy was bad for women with breast cancer. And she goes into detail about it in her book. And so I really recommend that you go ahead and read that. But I did have somebody reach out to me that is a breast cancer survivor. And she said her doctor recommends that she doesn't eat soy. What are my thoughts? So my thoughts are always, I would not go against what a doctor is telling you to do. So if your own personal doctor is telling you to avoid soy, then my suggestion is maybe bring up this book and point out to your doctor about the research that Dr. Funk has done. And your doctor might actually look further into it and realize, just like Dr. Funk did for many years, she told her patients not to eat soy. So just, maybe pass that information along to your doctor. So I would never tell somebody to go against what their doctor is telling them to do. So in this case, that client who's going through this course, going through this book club right now, I said, definitely avoid it if your doctor says so, but I would recommend that you bring up the information and the research that Dr. Funk shares in her book. In fact, I recommend you just tell your doctor to buy the book and read it because it's an amazing resource to have. So soy is just one of those things for many years that women were told to avoid. Now, I always recommend that any type of food that you eat should be in its most natural state. So I really do shy away from soy milks. I shy away from tofu. We go into great detail inside of my course about why. It is a form of MSG, high in glutamates, which is something that women our age should be avoiding. But if you have soy in its most natural state, which is edamame, then, for the most part, I don't see anything wrong with it, but I would definitely not go against your doctor's orders. Me personally, I occasionally have edamame, but that's really the only source of soy I have. Anything else is a processed food, and I really do try to stay away from processed foods. The other question that I got was garlic. So somebody reached out to me and said that they buy the pre-minced garlic already, and is that good? So a situation with garlic, just like with a lot of things, you usually have a good, better, and best option. So the powdered garlic, I usually try to stay away from. But if somebody says to me, Kelly, I'm not gonna use fresh garlic, well, I'd say then go ahead and use powdered garlic because that's better than no garlic. And then the next level up would be the pre-minced garlic. So that's not always the best option. Because usually there's added stuff. There's added oils, there's added preservatives. I don't know what brand you're using, but definitely check the ingredient label. And for that reason, I do shy away from that. But if you say to me, Kelly, I'm not going to buy fresh garlic and chop it because it's too much work, then I would say, well, then the minced is better. The pre-minced is better than no garlic, right? And then the absolute best is to be buying your garlic fresh, a fresh bulb, and chopping it yourself. Now remember, if you buy powdered or you buy the pre-minced, air has already gotten to that garlic, right? So it's already started to oxidize. And that's the case with any plant food. So it's not going to be the freshest way. It's not going to be the most medicinal way to get your garlic. Same goes with my little cheat that I do where I buy my garlic already pre-peeled. Now, the benefit of this is it hasn't been cut yet. It hasn't been chopped or minced or cut. So this actually retains a lot more of the nutrients. It does lose a little because the peel, which is its natural protectant, has been taken off. But it's kind of like, you know, sometimes I just need it on a really fast night. I need to just pull this out of my freezer, take out a clove or two, and chop it up. It saves me from peeling. But I do keep the regular garlic in there too, because if I have the time, I do go for the best option, which is this. So I hope that answers your question. Somebody reached out to me about that garlic question. Okay. Oh, this smells amazing. Okay, so for those of you in the those of you that are members that have access to our recipe library, you've got over 300 cancer-fighting recipes. Now, don't forget you have a search function in your app when you look for those recipes, and you can put in any of these ingredients. So, you know, if you're looking to get more turmeric in your diet, you can just put turmeric in the search function, and it pulls up all of the recipes that have turmeric in it. Or maybe you are looking to get more tomatoes in your diet. And so you would put tomatoes in that search function, and it would pull up all of our recipes that have tomatoes in it. So it's a great feature. So I just want to remind you guys that it is there. And all of the recipes in our recipe library are part of the Breast Healthy Foods. They're all plant-based, all whole food plant-based recipes, okay? And then the other thing too, just for our members, I just wanted to let you know, inside of your learning library, there's an entire course, an entire module on breast health. And there are tons of resources, not just Dr. Funk's book, but we've got lots of videos, lots of podcasts. There's a lot of different resources in there, all on breast health, specifically just breast health. So remember, you have that resource too. So if you want to take it further and you want to learn some more things about keeping, you know, our breasts healthy and how we can do what we can do to reduce our risk of getting breast cancer, make sure you're going into that learning library under the breast health section, and you're going to see tons of resources in there. And then also, like I just mentioned, for those of you inside of our membership who have the access to the learning library, make sure you check out the Instant Pot Masterclass. I did 2 classes, 2 recordings in there on start to finish. I walk you through the whole thing on how to use an Instant Pot, because I know for some people it can be a little intimidating. Some people are intimidated by the Instant Pot. They're maybe afraid of it exploding. Please don't fear the Instant Pot. So for those of you that have access to the learning library, make sure that you go in there and you watch that, because it's tons of information on how to use the Instant Pot, and there's some great recipes, Instant Pot recipes in there. And then the other thing I wanted to mention too, so we're learning all about the health benefits of spices. And again, probably number 1 on that list is turmeric, as is garlic would be also considered a spice. But remember, inside of your learning library, there's also a whole section on spices, my top 10 super spices for women in midlife, for women's health. So make sure that you guys also go there so that you can see, because simply adding in spices into our regular meals is a great way to be getting these foods into our diet. It doesn't always take a complete overhaul of our diet to get the health benefits of these plant foods. Just start incorporating more spices. So again, go into the masterclass there. It's called the Top 10 Healing Spices for Women in Menopause. And believe it or not, 2 of them that are already in there are black pepper and turmeric. So you can read more about those as well. So I want to let you guys know that, and there's a buy-in guide as well in that. So make sure that you check that out. All right, let's open this up. All right, I don't have a big spoon, so I'm going to just use this. Okay, so the spinach hasn't completely wilted, but that's okay. It will do that once I put the lid on and leave it on for a little bit longer. I probably will tighten it. I hadn't tightened it, so it didn't It didn't wilt all the way, but that's not a problem. It will after a little while. And it smells amazing. Okay, hold on one second. Let me get a big spoon here. All right. Yep, I can already tell. Even just after a few more minutes, that spinach is wilting. So I just want to show all of you what that looks like. All of that beautiful color, and we've got all of those amazing breast healthy superfoods in there, right? And again, like I said, I wish you guys could smell this. So just a few tips for you. The best way to enjoy this is to skip the meat. We're gonna learn a little bit more about that in a future class. We've really been focusing on what we're adding into our diet, but we are gonna touch a little bit about some things we should be avoiding or not eating a whole lot of. So your best bet is to serve this over some rice, and it is a very filling meal. I promise you, your meat eaters will absolutely love this. If, though, you need to still make your meat eaters happy, there's nothing wrong with that, then you could always do what I mentioned in the last video. You can cook some chicken on the side and then let your meat eaters just add it to their bowl. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But I really, really recommend you try eating it without any kind of meat or animal product, just again, because we are trying to limit those things in our diet so we can reduce our risk of breast cancer. But I do understand it's the real world and we have to make the family happy as well. So cook your chicken on the side and let your meat eaters just add it to their own bowl. So this way it makes everybody happy. And I would serve this over rice. I would also serve it with some fresh fruit and a big fresh salad. And I'm telling you, it's so filling. And this will last you several days. So when you make a big pot like this, you can leave it in your refrigerator and you've got meals for several days in a row. So you're not spending every single day in the kitchen. All right, ladies. So that's it. That's the Indian spinach curry. It is a breast healthy meal. As soon as I turn this off, I'm going to clean up this huge mess of coconut milk that's now on my kitchen floor. So, all right. So I know a lot of you are going to be catching this on the replay. So if you do and you have any questions, please post them below. If you make this meal, I would love to hear what you thought of it. Feel free to post a picture of it. And I hope you guys all enjoy it. So take care. Bye-bye.